the inn where guests forget their faces. A man stands in a dimly lit hotel room, his back to us, staring into a large, ornate, antique mirror. The room is silent except for the faint howl of wind outside. In the mirror, the reflection is not his. It's a pale, gaunt stranger with terrified eyes. The stranger's reflection slowly raises a hand, though the man himself remains perfectly still. The reflection's mouth opens in a silent scream. Have you ever really, truly wanted to disappear? Just leave it all behind and become someone else? I did. I wanted anonymity more than anything. I was looking for a quiet place where my face didn't matter, where I could finally outrun the person I used to be. But I never imagined the price. I never dreamed that a place could want my face more than I did. Section 1, The Arrival. The drive to the Blackwood Inn felt like a trip to the middle of nowhere. For hours, my car was the only sign of life on that winding mountain road, completely swallowed by a forest of skeletal-looking pine trees. A blizzard came out of nowhere, descending so fast the snow fell in thick, disorienting sheets. It didn't feel like weather. It felt like a warning. By the time the inn's faded sign finally appeared through the swirling white, like a crooked finger pointing me down a half-hidden driveway, I was desperate. The relief I felt was cold, and it didn't last long. The inn was a relic. It was a 2-story timber frame building that seemed to sag under the weight of the snow and its own long history. Stepping inside, the air was thick with the smell of wood smoke and something else. Something sickly sweet, like flowers left to dry in a sealed room for a century. A man emerged from the shadows behind a massive oak check-in desk. He was old, his skin like wrinkled parchment, but his eyes were sharp. Way too sharp. He didn't smile. He just watched me, as if he'd been waiting for me. "Just one?" he rasped, his voice a dry rustle of leaves. I nodded, stamping the snow off my boots. "Yeah, just for the night. This storm." "The storm brings everyone here," he said, his eyes staying on my face a little too long. Eventually, he pushed a heavy, wrought iron key across the counter. "Room 7, top of the stairs. We only ask one thing of our guests here. Respect the antiques. They've been here longer than the trees." The upstairs hallway was a gallery of mirrors, ornate, silver-backed, framed in dark, carved wood. They lined the walls, each one throwing back a distorted, stretched-out version of me as I walked past. But it was in my room that things started getting truly strange. Room 7 was spacious, but it felt oppressive, dominated by a huge 4-poster bed. And on the wall opposite was a magnificent, full-length mirror, its glass cloudy with age. I was exhausted. I dropped my bag and walked over to the mirror to see how tired I looked. For a split second, just a fraction of a second, the eyes I saw weren't my own. My eyes are brown. The eyes staring back at me were a chilling, watery blue. I blinked hard, and they were brown again. I just shook my head, blaming it on exhaustion, the dim light, the warped old glass. It was a trick of the light. It had to be. Section 2, The Anomaly. Sleep didn't help. I had these awful dreams of hallways that twisted into impossible shapes, and the faint sound of weeping that seemed to be coming from inside the walls. I woke up in that pre-dawn gloom, the blizzard still raging outside, sealing me in. A deep, heavy sense of isolation began to set in, the kind that makes you start to question what's real. I stumbled into the small bathroom and splashed some cold water on my face. When I looked up, I froze. The man in the medicine cabinet mirror was older than me. The hair was my color, but it was thinner, receding at the temples, and my scar, a faint white line above my right eyebrow, I've had since I was a kid. It was gone. Cold, sharp panic cut right through my exhaustion. I rushed back into the bedroom to that big antique mirror. The face that stared back now was almost a complete stranger. It had my bone structure, I guess, but the features were blurry, indistinct. It was like my own face was being slowly erased and painted over with a new one. I touched my cheek, and the man in the mirror did the same, but his hand seemed to tremble with a fear that wasn't mine. I had to get out of there. I threw on my coat and ran downstairs. But the front door was completely blocked by a mountain of snow, a solid white wall that reached halfway up the frame. I was trapped. A low moan echoed from somewhere deep inside the inn. It was a sound of such deep despair, and I felt this crazy urge to answer it. The innkeeper was gone. The entire place was dead silent, except for the screaming wind and that terrible, sorrowful sound. My fear was turning into desperation. I started searching for answers, trying the doors to the other rooms. All locked. I went back to my room, frantic, and just started pacing. One of the floorboards near the fireplace was loose. Using the heavy iron key, I pried it up and found a small, leather-bound book tucked underneath. It was the original innkeeper's ledger, dated 1888. The first few pages were just normal expenses, but then the handwriting grew wild and erratic. He wrote about a harsh winter, just like this one, and a sickness that took his wife and 2 daughters. He wrote about his grief, his desperation, and a terrible bargain. She came to me in the storm, one entry read. A shadow in the white. She offered a way to keep them with me. Not their bodies, but their faces. Their perfect, beloved faces. She touched the looking glass in the main hall, and their images appeared, smiling as they were in life. The price, a new face for the glass, for every year they are preserved. A guest, a stranger. The mirror must be fed. I felt the blood drain from my face. The ledger went on to list names, dozens of them, under a heading. Guests who gave their faces. Each name was followed by a chilling description. Mr. Abernathy arrived October 12th. His chin grew weak by morning. Miss Alara arrived November 3rd. Her eyes faded to gray before noon. This book wasn't a ledger. It was a catalog of stolen identities. The mirrors weren't just antiques. They were prisons, a collection. And I was the newest piece. Section 3, the confrontation. The very last entry in the ledger was a panicked scrawl. The pact is bound to the source mirror, the first one she touched, the one in the cellar behind the stone wall. To break it is to release them all, but the house will not allow it. The house protects her. The cellar, I had to find it. As soon as I left my room, the whole inn seemed to change. The hallway stretched on forever, the doors shifting and multiplying around me. Whispers slithered from the walls, the voices of all the forgotten guests. My own face felt like a phantom limb, an echo of a person I could barely remember. I didn't dare look at any of the mirrors. I found the cellar door behind a tapestry in the dining room. A wave of cold, damp air hit me as I opened it. Armed with a heavy fireplace poker, I went down into the darkness. The cellar was a huge, sprawling labyrinth of stone and shadow. And there, at the far end, was a section of the wall made from newer, mismatched stones. I swung the poker. The mortar crumbled. Stone by stone, I smashed through the wall until a dark hole was revealed. Inside was a small, hidden chamber. The air in there was frigid and dead. And in the center of the room hung a simple, unadorned, oval mirror. It was completely black. It reflected nothing, just absorbed all the light. This had to be the source mirror. As I stepped toward it, the old innkeeper appeared, blocking my path. But this wasn't the man from the front desk. This thing was a ghost, translucent and shimmering. Its face a horrifying collage of features, stolen from decades of guests. "You cannot," the specter hissed, its voice a chorus of stolen whispers. They are my family. You will join our collection." It lunged, and its form dissolved into a rush of cold air that knocked me right off my feet. The poker clattered away across the stone floor. The whispers in my head turned into screams. I scrambled backward, my hands desperately searching for the poker. My fingers closed around it, just as the entity formed in front of me again. But I didn't swing at the ghost. I put all my strength, all my terror, into one last desperate act. I hurled the poker at the source mirror. It hit the black surface with a sound that wasn't breaking glass. It was the sound of 1,000 voices screaming at once. For a second, the mirror held. Then a spiderweb of brilliant white light shot out from where the poker hit. The light exploded, and the mirror shattered into 1,000,000 pieces of dust. A final collective sigh echoed through the cellar, and then silence. The specter was gone. The crushing cold lifted. Shaking, I picked up a sharp piece of stone from the floor. Its surface was just reflective enough. I held it up. It was me, my own face, my brown eyes, the scar above my eyebrow. It was me. I didn't wait. I scrambled out of the cellar and saw the front door was clear. The storm had broken just as suddenly as it began. I ran to my car and I drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. I just put the Blackwood Inn behind me forever. Conclusion: freedom. The sun was shining. The world felt brand new. Miles down the road, I finally let myself relax. The fear started to fade, replaced by that giddy relief you only get when you survive something impossible. Just to be sure, just to see my own face one last time, I glanced up at the rearview mirror. Reflected back at me was the face of the gaunt, terrified stranger from my first night in room 7. My heart stopped. I slammed on the brakes, swerving to the side of the road. I stared, my hands flying to my face, my skin, my bones. It all felt like my own. But that reflection wasn't me. With a trembling hand, I flipped down the visor to look in its little mirror. A different face stared back, a woman with wide, frightened eyes. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling to open the camera, and switched it to selfie mode. A third face, a young man, looking completely confused. I shattered the source mirror. I escaped the inn. But I didn't break the pact. I only freed myself from the building. The curse wasn't in the mirrors anymore. It was in me. I would live, I would breathe, but I would never see my own face again. I am a haunted gallery, a walking collection of the forgotten. Looking at the stranger on my phone screen, there was only one question left, whispered into the empty car. Who am I? The Blackwood Inn didn't just steal faces, it stole identities. What do you think happened to the souls of the other guests? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you enjoy stories of lingering dread, make sure to like and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown.